The legend of Timothy's untold story was so dark that if any children were told by mishap, they would get nightmares and scream out at night, but the story was never revealed to the Fact Controller's engines until now. One foggy evening, Percy was returning home after a hard day's work at the docks. He was tired and in need of a long rest. He was traveling along a route he knew of, which was a shortcut to get home. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark.
I shan't be long now, for I'm nearing Crowley's Farm Crossing.
Crow's Farm Crossing was located near Hackenbeck, which was a small hamlet, serving as a halt on Thomas Branch Line. As Percy continued his run, the rails hummed and the signal lights shone green. Then he heard a whistle that was not familiar to him, and then a voice echoing in the darkness.
Children, children.
Percy was confused. He slowed down and whistled back.
Hello, is someone there?
The voice came again, repeating,
I like children. I like children.
Percy was getting more confused as he rounded the curve and about to cross Crow's Farm Crossing. He and his driver and fireman both gasped in horror as another engine shot out of the fog, whistling fit to burst with a face that had a very demonic look.
Welcome to your gravestone.
Percy wailed out, whistling long and loud as he closed his eyes, expecting a crash. But then silence quickly fell. Cautiously, Percy opened one eye as his driver and fireman, both shaking in fright, looked out from opposite sides of the cab.
What in Satan's name was that?
It looked like an engine. But that was no kind of engine, but it looked enough.
That was a ghost train.
Then the driver paused. He began to remember something from long ago.
Percy, remember the time I told you about that ghost story about the one that I saw the night before and was to be a pretend ghost on television?
Yes, I do. Why, what's made you bring that up?
I'm just beginning to think that. Possibly. No, I'm not kidding here. I believe that now it was not a fake story. It was real. I was wrong. The ghost train was real.
What? What do you mean?
I'm just starting to get this realization feeling in my stomach. I'm remembering about the story that I told Percy long ago when I claimed to have seen the ghost train running along the line, warning us while as it plunged into the mist.
Percy's wheels shivered at the thought if his driver was believing the story that he told him. Even he was starting to have second doubts about it, and he was still thinking about it when he made it back the sheds. But just who was the mysterious and horrifying ghost engine that he and his crew saw? The next morning, Percy was still feeling shocked from last night. All day, he kept on thinking about who the ghost train was and whether or not his driver's story was really true or still made up. Percy could remember the time, years ago, he was told about it and then telling it to Thomas and Toby. Thomas didn't believe it and later got a fright from Percy after his accident with a carted line. It all seemed like yesterday, but both Thomas and Percy had not forgotten it. Thomas was working at the quarry, shunting some trucks. He was getting them ready for Toby, who was to deliver them to the docks where some new building materials were being carried by ship from the mainland. The quarry master came walking up to him.
There is a small night special that needs to be taken to Edward Station. Can you take it for us, please?
Sure.
But Thomas really didn't want to. It was dark by the time the train was shunted into place. Thomas was soon coupled to set off. He was making good timing, passing through green signals and hearing the rails humming beneath him. There was a full moon in the sky along with stars twinkling. Thomas made it to Edward Station and placed the trucks into a siding and went home. At the sheds, Thomas and Toby were being looked at by engineers outside. The weather had changed, the mist had come down and it was crawling along the rails. At that moment, Percy puffed in, after delivering the mail train.
Hello, Percy. How did the delivery of the mail go?
It was okay, but really tiring.
But Thomas could see that his friend was not looking his normal self.
Percy, are you okay? You don't seem like your usual self.
The little green engine was unsure about wanting to, but he decided to pluck up courage.
Thomas, you might find this crazy and hard to believe, but I saw a ghost train, but not like any other. It looked so scary and very demonic, as if it came from the underworld, and when I saw it, it was coming straight at me, and by the time I opened my eyes, it was gone.
That's some story, and most of all over the top. A ghost train that looks demonic? That's mostly like seeing something out of a horror movie.
Did you get a good view of it?
I couldn't tell. It all happened so fast.
Surely, Your mind was only playing a trick on you, or perhaps you remember about that event years ago when you pulled off that ghost prank on me when you were pretending to the ghost train from that made-up story your driver told you.
That's just it. Remember when my driver told me about that story? Well, he now thinks that it wasn't made up at all. He now thinks it's real and the ghost train does indeed exist.
Wait, that was all made up and now years later your driver's changed it to thinking it's real? Come on Percy, ghost stories are there only give us a scare, not like in scaring us to death or something.
I believed it, but I never really thought about it seriously.
The three engines continued on this chatting until their drivers interrupted.
You can all go on about this, but that ghost train story that I told Percy a long time ago seems to have come back to haunt me.
What do you mean?
The story that I told was for real. When I was looking through the documents of past accidents and incidents, I stumbled across one that had not been looked at in a very long time. The records showed about an engine who had a tragic crash and left behind a haunting story that has only been recently told. The event happened a long time ago, way before Thomas, Percy and Toby came to the railway, including myself. The train was taking passengers home when, according to the reports from the investigators, its brakes failed and the engine continued on going until ran over the edge of a cliff, which was where the viaduct was built many years later. The engine crashed, killing everyone. But as the decades went by, witnesses claimed to have seen a ghost train running along on the anniversary of its accident. Even I saw it. But I got a better look at it and saw its face. The engine had a very cold presence, one that I never felt before. He had the look of a sadistic madman, an evil and demonic look that only the devil himself could describe. The engine had a number 0 on his sides, with 6 small wheels and painted silver.
An engine with 6 small wheels, painted silver and the number 0? Who was he?
Percy's driver took a deep breath for what he was about to say next.
The engine's overall appearance was just like you, Thomas. And his name was Timothy.
Thomas' eyes widened in shock, as did Percy's and Toby's.
Why, bless my bell.
So the ghost train that I saw was him.
It seems to be, now that I remember it. It fitted the story of how it came together.
Timothy was an engine who looked me? But I never saw him or even met him before. How is this possible that he can resemble me?
Yeah, it baffles me. If Timothy's haunting our line, what purpose does he have?
I can't tell.
No one replied. The shed had gone quiet. Thomas was still in a state of shock. Toby was confused and Percy was left with so many questions flying around in his smoke box. The truth in finding out who the ghost train was had been told at last, but the other engines on Soda were not aware of this. Just then the sound of an engine's whistle broke the silence, which made everyone jump. They saw it was only Gordon taking the evening express, much to their relief, but they could escape the cold thought of Timothy, which was floating around in their minds in the worst ways possible. The next day, things on the branch line ran as normal. Thomas, Toby and Daisy took passengers while Percy was shunting in the yard. The branch line was getting more busy as the week went on. As the summer season progressed, Thomas soon had to do some yard shunting while Percy took over and pulling his coaches. One day, Daisy was taken ill and had to be taken to the works to be mended. Toby was later sent to help out with Percy take stone trucks from the quarry to the docks while Thomas was busy taking passengers and working. By the time the week had gone, the engines were totally exhausted.
Phew, all that working made me feel like there was no ending.
I got so tired that I thought I would work myself apart.
And I thought I was going to get so overworked that I would go insane.
Toby and Thomas thought that the little green engine was overeating again, but yet they understood where he was coming from. Some days later, Percy was making his way back home after delivering the mail train. The weather was similar to when it was a few nights ago. He wondered if he was going to encounter Timothy's evil spirit. He followed the same shortcut to get home, passing crowds, farm crossing and going through green signals. Just then he saw Toby in a siren by a signal box and came to a stop.
Hey Tubby, what are you doing here at this time of the evening?
I've been here for hours. The points are jammed so I can't go anywhere. My driver's calling for help and a group of workmen are coming to mend the failed points.
The old tram engine suddenly noticed that the mist was rolling in quite fast with a slight blow from the wind, which was now howling against the trees, and the moon's bright light from above was starting to become blocked.
My word, what unpleasant weather this is.
Suddenly he and Percy heard a whistle of another engine, which was coming from the darkness ahead of them. It was then heard again, followed by an echoing voice.
Children. Children.
Bless my bell, it can't be.
Oh no, it's him.
The echoing voice got louder and louder, repeating the same words over and over. Then they saw the shape of an engine silhouetting in the mist with its lamp shining brightly. Toby and Percy remained silent. They couldn't see the mysterious engine's face, but it was for certain that it was the evil spirit of Timothy.
My reign of horror will never end. My wrath will be felt, and one by one, all of you will be sent to your graves. And then you will be mine and will join me in hell.
Suddenly Timothy shot forward, shrieking out loudly and crying out. Percy and Toby got a quick glimpse of his sadistic face as he about to have a collision. They shut their eyes as they anticipated a crash. But then, after hearing Timothy's whistle sounded, total silence fell. Percy opened his eyes first, then Toby. They looked around, but no one was there. Timothy had vanished, as did the mist, and the wind had died out.
So, that was Timothy.
Yes, Tubby, it was.
News of the encounter of Timothy's ghost soon spread down the line, but Percy and Toby were not the only ones who had caught sight of him. During the weekend, witnesses who were waiting for Thomas' evening train claimed to have seen Timothy, mostly scaring them and their children, as well as station staff and workmen who were mending the road. Rumors began to spread until one day Toby was told the rumor. Later that evening, the old tram engine explained all this to Percy. Thomas was out, taking tanks full of tar that were to be delivered to the workmen.
Looks like your driver was right about the story of Timothy.
What?
The branch line has been losing many visitors. It looks like Timothy's been scaring them away. As it says in the story that was untold, he comes running through the darkness as a warning to others. But what's with the warning? Who is he after, and what's his purpose in haunting our line?
Oh my goodness, if the story that my driver mentioned is really true. All this time we've been running the branch line that has been haunted all this time with an evil ghost that we never knew of.
At that moment fine rain fell, with a slight hear of thunder and lightning. For the rest of night it rained, and it would continue to for a couple of days. Thomas, Percy and Toby didn't like it when the weather the dull and miserable. After the weather had changed, things seemed to return to normal. However, after the three engines were resting in Farquhar yards after working all day, Thomas began to think about the story of Timothy, for it had been on his mind for some time. One hazy morning at Elsbridge Station, Thomas asked his driver about the ghost train.
I was once told about it, but I never believed it. I thought it was some made-up tale to play in our minds. However, we were wrong. So this story really is true?
I can't be sure, but if this ghost story is and that this incident about an engine who had a similar appearance like you, then...
What? Are you trying to say that Timothy is somehow related to me?
His driver looked up at him. He said nothing in return. The little engine was now lost with questions he wanted answered, but there was a part of him that made him not to believe in all this.
With all these tellings about an engine with similar looks to me, it's crazy. It's all crazy. It's like there's a more darker side of me.
For the rest of the afternoon, Thomas worked quietly and said nothing to anyone. The thought of thinking that Timothy was more of a darker form of himself soon overwhelmed him until it made him ill. Edward took him to the works to be looked at, while Toby and Percy had to do most of the works alone. Several weeks had passed, and there seemed to be some more signs of Timothy's evil spirit. But as the old saying goes, this was just the calm before the storm. That night, Percy and Toby were alone in the sheds, but they were worried for Thomas. But their concerns were soon changed to happiness when he came back a few weeks later. But their reunion was cut short when they felt a surge of icy coldness and the blowing of the wind from outside. Then the engines saw mist seeping in from under the doors and crawling along the floor of the rails until it floated around them.
What's going on?
We already down.
It's him. Timothy's out there.
So you've sensed my presence. The years of haunting this line. The years of haunting an island that has changed in the wake of my demise still hasn't understood about me and why I did the unthinkable. Taking human lives. You can't see nor feel what I'm going through. This railway will soon be forgotten, just like me. The past of an era that I led the way for my kind. My kind of engines. The LB and SCRE2s. I was meant to be a really useful engine, but I was not worthy. I let the others have the pride and joy, while I became nothing more but a stepping stone. I hated it. I hated everything that this railway represents. Even after my so-called accident, I still see no change. I see the same faces, the same people. This is a worthless railway. I will send you all to your graves. And then he, the one who is able to survive and live on, will go with me into hell.
He came again.
But he was talking about send him down with him. Just who is it that he's talking about?
He and Percy looked across to Thomas, who was looking very shaken and wide-eyed as if he had really seen Timothy's evil spirit.
Thomas? You okay?
I know. I know who's he's after. It's me.
But why? What does Timothy want with you?
I know didn't want to believe it. But I do now. I believe that ghost train story was real and that there was an engine that once ran on this railway before I came here in 1915, but I was way too young to even know or even remember back then. But now, it all makes sense. Timothy is after me and wants me gone. He wants me gone from this world.
What? He's after you.
For next few days, the branch line was not as active as it should be after now realizing that Timothy's ghost was after Thomas. Toby and Percy were deeply worried about him, but despite this evil threat, Thomas dug deep down inside his boy to show that he was not going to be defeated by someone who was a near identical image of himself. Percy and Toby didn't know this, but the blue tank engine was planning to have a final showdown with the ghost of Timothy. Thomas had spent most of the next day working on the main line with Gordon, Henry and James and helping them with their heavy express trains. Later that evening, he took some coal trucks to the docks and then some shunting before he went to take a group of workmen to the viaduct, which was in need of inspection. The little blue engine was now feeling tired and worn out. He then headed into a siding where he had to let James pass through with the express. The night was clear with a full moon. Soon, Thomas was out of the siding and turned off the main line, heading back on the branch line. But as he got closer to him, the fog came down, very thick and heavy. The driver and fireman found it very hard to see from the cab windows even by looking out. Then out the blue, a much thicker layer of fog flooded in and totally blinded Thomas and his crew. With quick thinking, the driver slowed him down and brought him to stand still.
We'll wait here until the fog clears.
Good idea. There's no way we're gonna continue on in this.
Thomas agreed as well, but only after a few minutes. He and his crew could hear the sounds of another engine approaching, but the fog was just so thick that he couldn't tell whether it was coming from behind or in front of him. Then he heard its whisper, followed by a shrill voice lurking in the darkness. At first, Thomas felt very afraid and tense, but he managed to put on a brave face as the sound got louder and louder. Thomas closed his eyes and then said in the bravest way as possible,
Come on out and show yourself. You don't scare me.
Thomas slowly reopened his eyes and looked ahead of him, and there he was, the ghost of Timothy, standing a few inches from his buffers, staring heavily at him. Thomas, driver and fireman, could see him too and felt his icy cold presence, but they, along with the blue tank engine, did not back down.
Timothy, you are real.
Hello, Thomas. We finally meet, face to face, as if we were destined to.